You know what time it is? Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We're back! Hi! The vocals. No, I'm just kidding. I'm having way too much fun tonight. I apologize for my goofiness. Listen, if you can't laugh at yourself, how do you expect to be able to laugh when other people make jokes? Everybody needs to be able to laugh at themselves sometime in life. If you say no, you're just being a little too serious. Now, welcome to Storytime. As I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your downtime, nap time, max relaxing child, chillax time, study time, break time, mean time, scheme time, in between time, CP time, any time that you want to hear a highly animated voice bring you wonderful stories of fantasy, science fiction, adventure, and many, many more in between. And no, I do not own the music that you're listening to in the background. But yes, I've admitted in the past I've been a nasty. They weren't kidding when they called me, well, a witch. But you'll find that nowadays I've mended all my ways, repented, seen the light, and made a switch. True, yes. Alright, I'm done. I'm done. I've been on a Little Mermaid kick for a while, so pardon me. Alright. Now, on to a bit more serious topics. So, the Baudelaire orphans, unfortunately, have been failing their classes at Proof Rock Preparatory School because they've had to do now 10 nights, of laps around this track and field. All night long, until the crack of dawn. And because they're so tired, now they're being forced. Not only are they failing, but now Vice Principal Nero is forcing them to do a comprehensive exam with Mr. Ramore and Mrs. Bass. And Sonny has to make a whole drawer of homemade staples. And if they're not able to pass their test with an A, they have to get kicked out of Proof Rock Preparatory School. And coincidentally, Coach Genghis, aka Cow is offering to take the kids in if they get kicked out of school. Which, that's not how that works in real life. But this is the world of mystery and fiction, so let's have some fun. Alright. Chapter 10. The 3 Baudelaire orphans and the 2 Quagmire triplets sat in the orphan's shack, which had never looked less unpleasant than it did now. All 5 children were wearing the noisy shoes Violet had invented, so the territorial crabs were nowhere to be seen. The salt had dried up the dripping tan fungus into a hard beige crust that was not particularly attractive, but at least did not plop drops of fungus juice on the youngsters, because the arrival of Coach Genghis had focused their energies on defeating his treachery. The 5 orphans hadn't done anything about the green walls with the pig hearts on them, but otherwise the orphan shack had become quite a bit less mountainous and quite a bit more molehilly since the Baudelaire's arrival. It still had a long way to go to be attractive and comfortable living quarters, but for thinking of a plan it would do in a pinch. And the Baudelaire children were certainly in a pinch. If Violet, Klaus, and Sonny spent one more exhausting night running laps, they would flunk their comprehensive exams and secretarial assignment, and then Coach Genghis would whisk them away from Proof Rock Prep, and as they thought of this, they could almost feel Genghis's bony fingers pinching the life right out of them. The Quagmire triplets were so worried about their friends that they felt pinched as well, even though they were not directly in danger. Or so they thought anyway. I can't believe we didn't figure out Coach Genghis's plan earlier, Isadora said mournfully, paging through her notebook. Duncan and I did all of this research, and we still didn't figure it out. Don't feel badly, Klaus said. My sisters and I have had many encounters with Olaf. It's always difficult to figure out his scheme. We were trying to find out the history of Count Olaf, Duncan said. The Proof Rock Preparatory Library had a pretty good collection of old newspapers, and we thought if we could find out some of his other schemes, we might figure out this one. That's a good idea, Klaus said thoughtfully. I've never tried that. We figured that Olaf must have been an evil man before he met you, Duncan continued, so we looked up things in old newspapers. But it was difficult to find too many articles because, as you know, he always uses a different name. But we found a person matching his description in the Bangkok Gazette. He was arrested for strangling a bishop, but escaped from prison in just 10 minutes. That's actually pretty good. Even the Joker, Batman's #1 arch nemesis, can't even get out of jail in 10 minutes. Just saying. Which is not good to go to jail, and it's not good to break out, so don't get any ideas. That sounds like him, all right, Klaus said. And then, in the Verona Daily News, Duncan said, there was a man who had thrown a rich widow off of a cliff. He had a tattoo of an eye on his ankle, but he had eluded authorities, and then we found a newspaper from your hometown that said, I don't mean to interrupt, Isadora said, but we better stop thinking about the past and start thinking about the present. Lunchtime is more than half over, and we desperately need a plan. You're not napping, are you? Klaus asked Violet, who had been silent for a very long time. Of course I'm not napping, Violet replied. I'm concentrating. I think I can invent something to make all those staples Sunny needs, but I can't figure out how I can invent the device and study for the test at the same time. Since SOAR began, I haven't taken good notes in Mr. Remora's class, so I won't be able to remember his stories. Well, you don't have to worry about that, Duncan said, holding up his dark green notebook. I've written down every one of Mr. Remora's stories. Every boring detail is recorded here in my notebook. And I've written down how long, wide, and deep all of Mrs. Bass's objects are, Isadora said, holding up her own notebook. You can study from my notebook. Klaus and Violet can study from Duncan's. Thank you, Klaus said, but you're forgetting something. We're supposed to be running laps this evening. We don't have time to read anybody's notebook. Tarkor, Sunny said, which meant, you're right, of course. SOAR always lasts until dawn, and the tests are first thing in the morning. If only we had one of the world's greatest inventors to help us, Violet said. I wonder what Nikola Tesla would do. Or one of the world's greatest journalists, Duncan said. I wonder what Dorothy Parker would do in this situation. And I wonder what Hammurabi, the ancient Babylonian, would do to help us, Klaus said. He was one of the world's greatest researchers. Or the great poet Lord Byron, who was also pretty good. Isadora said, Shark! Sunny said, rubbing her teeth thoughtfully. Who knows what any of those people or fish would do in our shoes, Violet said. It's impossible to know. Duncan snapped his fingers, not to signal a waiter because he was listening to catchy music, but because he had an idea. Which, by the way, kids, it is never appropriate to snap, wave a cup, or, shake your glass at your server or waitress or waiter. That is incredibly rude. It is a terrible, antiquated action. Please do not do so. Like I said, it is incredibly rude to snap or to... if you don't know your server's name, just bless it. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, miss. Or if you're not sure, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but do you mind getting this? Don't wave your cup. Don't snap or clap for somebody. We are not animals. We are people, okay? Please be mindful of that. That's in our shoes, he said. That's it. What's it? Klaus asked. How will our noisy shoes help? No, Duncan said. Not the noisy shoes. I'm thinking about Coach Genghis's expensive running shoes that he said he couldn't take off because his feet were smelly. And I bet they are smelly, Isadora said. I've noticed he doesn't bathe much. But that's not why he wears them, Violet said. He wears them for a disguise. Exactly, Duncan said. When you said in your shoes, it gave me an idea. I know you just meant in your shoes as an expression meaning in our situation. But what if someone else were actually in your shoes? What if we disguised ourselves as you? Then we could run laps and you could study for the comprehensive exams. Disguise yourselves as us, Klaus said. You two look exactly like each other, but don't look anything like us. So what? Duncan said. It'll be dark tonight. When we've watched you from the archway, all we can see were two shadowy figures running and one crawling. That's true, Isadora said. If I took the ribbon from your hair, Violet, and Duncan took Klaus's glasses, we'd look enough like you that I bet Coach Genghis couldn't tell. And we could switch shoes so your running on the grass would sound exactly the same, Duncan said. But what about Sunny? Violet asked. There's no way two people can disguise themselves as three people. The Quagmire triplets' faces fell. If only Quigley were here, Duncan said. I just know he'd be willing to dress up as a baby if it meant helping you. What about a bag of flour? Isadora asked. Sunny's only about as big as a bag of flour. Nothing personal, Sunny. De nada, Sunny said, shrugging. We could snitch a bag from the cafeteria, Isadora said, and drag it alongside us as we ran. From a distance, it would probably look enough like Sunny to avoid suspicion. Being in each other's shoes seems like an extremely risky plan, Violet said. If it fails, not only are we in trouble, but you are as well. And who knows what Coach Genghis will do to you. This, as it turns out, was a question that would haunt the Baudelaires for quite some time. But the Quagmires gave it barely a thought. Don't worry about that, Duncan said. The important thing is to keep you out of his clutches. It may be a risky plan, but being in each other's shoes is the only thing we've been able to think of. We don't have time to waste thinking of anything else, Isadora added. We'd better hurry if we want to snitch the bag of flour and not be late for class. And we'll need a string or something so we can drag it along and make it look like Sunny crawling, Duncan said. And I'll need to snitch some things too, Violet said, for my staple-making invention. Need up, Sunny said, which meant something along the lines of, then let's get moving. The 5 children walked out of the orphan shack, taking off their noisy shoes and putting on their regular shoes so they wouldn't make a lot of noise as they walked nervously across the lawn to the cafeteria. They were nervous because they were not supposed to be sneaking into the cafeteria, snitching things, and they were nervous because their plan was indeed a risky one. It was not a pleasant feeling, nervousness, and I would not wish for small children to be any more nervous than the Baudelaires and the Quagmires were as they walked toward the cafeteria in their regular shoes. But I must say that the children weren't nervous enough. They didn't need to be nervous about sneaking into the cafeteria, even though it was against the rules, or snitching things, even though they didn't get caught. But they should have been nervous about their plan, and about what would happen that evening when the sun set on the brown lawn and the luminous circle began to glow. They should have been nervous now in their regular shoes about what would happen when they were in each other's. And that is where we're going to end for tonight. I grow gray and bald with chagrin when you play the violin. How I wait for death to begin when you play the violin. That is a song for the Gothic Archie, so if anybody has ever listened to a series of unfortunate events on audiobooks, a CD or cassette or whatever the case may be, back when I was growing up when this series was coming out, they were still making cassettes, but still, that's besides the point. They're a great group. If you ever want to listen to music that is connective to the books, the Gothic Archies, they're awesome because they made a song for each title, and the songs are connected to the story. So in the Vile Village, there are crows, crows, crows everywhere, and even if you don't hear me, I don't care. There's this abyss, that long dark road is gonna be alluding, and I have it right here. Honestly, y'all, this is my favorite with the tie with the 7th book. This is our next book we're gonna read, which is the Ursac's Elevator. And it actually plays, well, all of the stories are interconnected, but this to me acts as a direct sequel to the end of the Austere Academy, so please pay close attention. But other than that, like I said, go check out the Gothic Archies. That's just me, and I don't typically use my lower register on my voice, but the Gothic Archies, they got it. They do amazing things with their music, and it's just fun. And I love when people used to do that. Like, there would be like different singers or artists that would sing for an audiobook or a really well-known story and whatnot. Yes, I'm trying to get my hair right. Pardon me. No, just kidding. But, you know, it's just fun. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and check them out on YouTube. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.